Top of the morning to you, Doomers. All around the world, my name is Reagan. Welcome back to my channel. It's August 8th, 2022. And today I wanted to do something a little different and cover a few news articles and things I found interesting to newcomers alike. But first, let's start off with how capitalism is going with our weekly Robin Hood Snacks report. Yes, directly from Vlad himself. There's been some interesting developments in finance. For instance, Visa and MasterCard are profiting higher from higher swipe fees. No surprise. They raked in something like $55 billion in swipe fees last year. What? Wonderful. MasterCard and Visa process 83% of transactions in the United States at least. And their profits are expected to surge, 66% profit margin, S&P's 500's highest. So the economy is changing. All the jobs have been gotten back. We've got all the jobs back from coronavirus, evidently. And people are booking with Airbnb and buying school supplies, in which they get charged more swipe fees. So make sure to shop on tax-free weekend if you happen to have a few spawn going back to school. Next up, I wanted to cover this article. I felt it necessary to touch on the different spectrums, the spectrum of climate awareness, because it isn't so black and white. We know this. You can't just be a believer or a denier. Some people fall somewhere in between. Mostly people who are dead ass asleep or don't have the mental capacity or time to invest in using critical thinking skills and learning about their own goddamn future. So this article comes directly out of, there's three articles I wanted to touch on today from W. Rawl TechWire, where it's written by Marshall Brain. He's a futurist, investor, NCSU professor, and writer and creator of How Stuff Works. He goes on to explain in this article the different types of climate awareness. You have most notably the deniers, which there's no two splitting hairs about it, are straight up
evil.
Okay. Take those deniers, put them in front of the 37 people who just died in Kentucky flooding, or the 14,000 people that died in the past few years. Okay, the over $700 billion of damage done. Just put them in front of those, they wouldn't stand up. They're pussies. Okay. I wouldn't take a man like that in my crew, and neither should you. Do you have any principles? Do you stand up for anything? Probably not. You occupy some form of hell. If you're a denier, I'm sorry. There's also the climate blind. They have heard it, but they don't really know or care much beyond that. We call them ostriches with their head in the sand, or complete fucking morons. Some other doomers like to use. I don't really care, do you? These people should also probably be shot on the spot. We just spoke about the climate aware. They're aware of the problems, but they're, maybe think it's worthwhile to implement solutions. I've had a person come at me on my last video, a young person saying, I'm aware and I'm going to do whatever I can to fight it. And more power to you if you think you can fight it. I'm telling you now, you can't. Unless you can suck 420 parts per million of CO2 out of the atmosphere. Every single thing you do is futile and only adds to the problem more. But, it's all risk-reward ratio. How do you want to spend your last few years? Sure, do your thing. Climate workers are exactly that. People who are working to make progress, fight it. Activists, also the same sort of people. I would kind of group these together. The worker is actually more, the distinction is they work within like a corporation versus the activists who are, blocking streets. And there's, last but not least, us, my subscriber-based doomers. But humanity's already gone too far when it comes to climate change, and there's no way for humanity to solve the problem. Yes, indeed. But who's really aware? Next up, I want to look at this article from the San Francisco Examiner. Looking for love? Better not doubt climate change, says the title. It says if you're single or climate skeptical, you might find yourself in a rapidly shrinking pool of potential matches. Caring about the environment, quote, is a big turn-on for Gen Z and millennial daters. I'm a mid-range millennial, by the way. I'm just right in the middle. And it's an allure so large that 60% of total Bumble users have an environmentalism badge displayed on their profiles to signal their green values, while 90% of Bay Area-based OkCupid members said they're concerned about the warming world. These aren't small sample sizes. This isn't 20 or 30 people who are nervous about what's happening in the environment, said in regards to OkCupid's questions about climate change. More than 8 out of 10 express worry. That's 81% of 7 million. That's not a small number. So basically what it turns out to be is when you date somebody, now you'll see an environmental badge above their profile pic to let you know that they care,
Okay.
And the last article today comes from Gizmondo. This is actually rehashing a paper published last week that's been covered on all the mainstream media outlets by now at this point.
Now, a new study says that catastrophic climate change outcomes, including human extinction, are not being taken seriously enough by scientists.
Systemic risk, so numerous different knock-on effects cascading together, whether that be new zoonotic infections or a financial crisis, for instance, and climate change triggering other catastrophes such as nuclear war.
So it sounds like you're saying we're not being doom and gloom enough about what's at stake with climate change, even though some might say, but we probably are. And you seem to be saying, actually, we need to be taking this even more seriously, and things are worse than even what we've presented so far.
That there's incentives for climate scientists to err on the side of least drama and not be...
I'm really sorry to jump in, Luke, but that's all the time we have. Luke Kemp, thank you very much for joining us.
It's essentially saying to rethink doom. The headline is, "We are not freaking out enough about climate change." And this new paper argues that the worst case scenarios of climate catastrophe are little explored and we need to be prepared. I'm just going to read a few bullet points and sum this up. We could be facing a climate endgame, and the concept of climate change ending human existence is a dangerously unexplored topic. Not on my channel. Says a troubling new research paper. I've been screaming about climate change for the past 2 years and have been nothing but suppressed. In other words, we know it's going to be really bad, but we're completely unprepared for true worst case scenarios. Yes, indeed. Like all the nuclear facilities melting down around the globe, or New York City flooding every single year. We aim to develop this group, a rational and scientific foundation for researching climate calamity, and the question whether climate change could result in a global societal collapse or eventual human extinction. The lead author, Luke Kemp from Cambridge's Center for Study of Existential Risk. While you may think it couldn't get worse, Kent and his co-authors argue that a lot of media and policy has actually given focus to up to 2 degrees Celsius pass, but we're on barely track to avoid. We're not going to avoid this. And there's a few reasons for this. He says because we just talked about 1.5 as the best case scenario, and anything further on, anything past 2 degrees Celsius, you're considered an alarmist and a zealot, whatever kind of terminology you want to put, just not a good person because you're stating the worst case scenario. But in fact, we should be prepared to come to a gunfight with a gun and not a knife.
The French Open continues with the men's final tomorrow on NBC.
Our title correctly describes the predators as exotic and grotesque. These creatures from a faraway planet are the best of hunters ever filmed or written about. What makes them classic monsters is not just their appearance and thirst for killing, but also their code of honor and strict social rules that they follow. The predators are a species called the Yautjas that hail from a planet called Yautja Prime. We humans oversimplified their name and called them predators on the basis of the acts they perform.
Now, while it may seem alarmist to throw around these scenarios, the team argues it's better to be prepared. There we go. The paper throws notes about similar nuclear winter, giving past examples. There's nothing alarmist about plausible extreme risk, Kemp said. We do it for car and plane crashes without cries of alarmism. It is simply good risk management and science. The alternative, marching blind, is naive and potentially fatally foolish. Correction, is fatally foolish. But the comments are where it really shines. The most highly voted comment on this page, which only got 16 upvotes compared to a climate denialist comment on, let's say, a Fox News article, says the worst case scenarios of yesterday have been consistently proven to be likely scenarios of today. This is written by CM Allen 2 in the comments, which is to say year after year the projections keep getting worse and worse. We are not freaking out about enough because it's not possible to freak out enough. It's basically an apocalypse-level future hurtling towards us, and we squandered the time we needed to avoid it. And that's just what the planet is going to do to us. It doesn't even begin to address what we'll do to ourselves as more and more shit hits the fan. Take a cursory glance through history if you want some ideas about how badly we respond. Right, we can't even get people to wear a mask while 14 million plus people die. You know, just in case anyone was still optimistic of our chances, they're effectively zero. I agree with this comment. This next comment throws a little gallows humor into it. Panic not, dear citizens, writes Jack Jones. The poorly named Inflation Reduction Act has billions of US dollars to fight climate change, thanks to our good friend Joe Manchin, and reduce our carbon emissions to 2005 levels by 2030. You're welcome. I mean, and sure, in exchange, he got more drilling in the Gulf of Mexico and Alaska, and mandated oil leasing of millions of acres of public lands before new solar and wind projects for the foreseeable future. And yes, drilling on public land produces 1/4 of greenhouse gas emissions in the U.S. But he's the hero we need right now. Like Homelander, but with a pin. The last one, I haven't read this yet, so this is a first for me. It was just written 2 days ago. It's too late, writes Absinthe Minded. Freaking out also accomplishes nothing because there's nothing those of us who are freaking out have the power to change. The baby boomer generation will succeed in destroying the planet before it dies off. One last sociopathic fuck you to the entire species. I suggest people start figuring out how to move northward within the next 2 decades. New Orleans will be gone by then, and Miami won't be far behind. Well, just wanted to give you a little fill-in, some news on Monday morning. I actually recorded this video on my camera, but felt it was more professional to put it on a professional camera. So, thank you for all your support. Hit like and subscribe. Just informing the world about doing my part about the catastrophe that we're in, and really the only truly way to fight it. So you're wondering all this, like, what's the point, man? Like, get to the point. The really only true way to fight this is to go completely detached off the grid. Grow, store everything you have for a while. That's really the only way. If you still keep using credit cards, going to the grocery store, you're a part of the system as everybody else. But who really is willing to sacrifice their leisure and comfort to fight an existential threat? Not even me. Not even me. Okay, folks. Again, hit like and subscribe. And I'll try to get streaming and talk to you later. See ya.